Hello and welcome to the Writer's Block Workshop. Today we're going to be discussing distribution. This is a topic that has been very poignant for me, but out of the gate, let's hear from the other folks. How are you guys doing? How have you been?
So every time I come in contact with a new AI, I ask them about my own book because I figure it's a good chance to see if they know what they're talking about. And I have not yet had a single one tell me true things about my book. But the new Grok just told me that my name was a pen name for someone called Jeanette Lynn Clark.
Love it. The LLMs, they're geniuses. They are all very good, and you should trust all of the outputs that they create.
I should say this one was much better. Like everything it said about the book itself was correct, which is or was at least from the blurbs. I mean, sometimes they're not correct because the blurbs sum up. But then when it got to listing the books in the series, it listed the first 3 books, and then I don't know what the other books were. Maybe they're by Clark, or maybe they made them up. I'd never heard those titles. And then it said that I was a pseudonym, and at that point, I'm like, I'm out of here. I keep looking at them like, if it gets such simple things so wrong, and it could just say nothing, but it gets them wrong, what must it be like for anything I would ask it that I don't know about,
Here's a funny one. I think I forgot to set this space to record when I was creating it like a fool, but not a big deal because I'm recording it locally, so it will be available on the podcast. It is what it is.
That's good. So what's going on with Amazon?
I've sorted out KDP. I'm live on that. I'm still trying to get ACX worked out. Hopefully that will happen in the very near term. I was on the phone with their customer support yesterday for a little while, kind of chasing down some of the issues because I was getting a bit of a runaround where I was messaging support and then getting a reply from risk management telling me to email support, and then just getting a loop of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Sounds like it was some automatic message or something and you were not getting by.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad. I thought you probably would get it worked out. It's just the frustration of having to do it,
Waste of my time. Waste of their time.
Exactly. Waste of everyone's time for something so frivolous and ridiculous. And, I just wish there was a rule that they had to just take down the one disputed thing and discuss that with you. I mean, that would have still been a little annoying, but a lot less.
Not even, because it was already down. That's the funny part. Exactly. Can't win for losing here.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really glad. As I said, I was 80% sure things would go well for you, but it's not the same as having to go through it. And,
Heidi messaged me. She said she was making a coffee. She likes to save making coffee for the literal minute when we start the program, so she goes into the dead zone.
No,
interesting.
No, I said I was getting the coffee was made. I was getting a second cup.
It's still the same issue.
Not really. I was here. I was just listening. I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay. How is it? What are you doing? How is it?
How are you?
I am so proud of myself. I figured out how to get my ebook up, and it's up, and I put it up last night, and they put it out. So they're being nice to me.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We'll see. Until they're mean to me, I'm going to think they're nice, right?
Ebooks usually go really fast, I feel like.
Well, the paperback already existed, so I think that probably helped.
Yeah.
I've not noticed that makes any difference, whether there's a paperback or I do the ebook first. They're usually really, really fast. I don't think I've ever had it take more than 10 or 12 hours, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, that's probably about right.
But a few years ago, it used to sometimes take a day or two. But I think in the last couple of years, it's gone a lot quicker. Maybe they just have the system down a lot better,
I think they probably have an AI checking to make sure it is what it is, so they can really, personally, I think that's what it is.
Right.
But I don't know.
They
But
definitely check, and they check because we've had ours kicked back once or twice over the years, and this is talking over some years now, due to like extra noise or something, and then my lovely narrator, who has all sorts of software for that, will like rerun something and remove whatever the noise was, and then it's good, So occasionally they've done
yeah,
that.
I
I think they do it pretty quickly now. I remember in the early days when we started, I don't remember how long ago it was, but we've done 5 books over like 7 years or something. It used to take a lot longer for them to get back to you. Now it seems to be pretty quick.
Now they streamlined it, but I did figure out how to export from InDesign and use Kindle Create to do the ebook instead of trying to do it directly with InDesign because it just doesn't work. And so once I did that, it worked perfectly. I mean,
Wonderful.
I had to.
Wonderful.
No, I mean, it's like it stripped my fonts, because I have my little fonts I like. But honestly, I'm like, I don't care.
Usually,
It's an ebook. Nobody cares.
yeah,
So
it's kind of difficult to get fonts properly, but usually they at least give you a choice so you can pick a separate font that's a second font. It's just not the pretty one that we would like.
Well, let's address why that is. So there's a couple of things. With Reflowable, it is going to give the users the choice. If you do print replica, you're basically pasting a PDF into the KPF file. So it will replicate that PDF on devices and apps.
Right, but I'm talking about you can do something like put us in, you can have your regular font and then have like the letter A done in a script. You know what I'm saying? And you can choose to have like that a different font, and they give you a few.
I'm of
And
the
trying to
opinion.
make it permanent is really difficult. Like a fancy one, you have to embed it. And my wonderful typesetter and I have never figured out exactly how to do that. So
Yeah,
we've limited ourselves to what they have available. But I have a couple places in my books where something's in like a special font because she found an object and she's looking at it and it's significant or something like that. And they do give you a little ability to do that. It's just not nearly what you might like.
well, I'm of the opinion if you want that full on visual experience, you buy the book. If you
Yeah,
just want to
yeah,
read the damn thing, if you just want to read it on
yeah,
Kindle, it doesn't matter. So I'm like,
yeah,
it got my art in there. I was surprised. I was surprised how well it did that because I have for you guys have both read it, so you know that I've broken the novella down into like 4 sections by
yeah,
seasons, and I have a piece of art for each season, and it plopped that in there no problem.
yeah.
So that was good. I was like, wow,
My
cool.
my my typesetter has found that for the print version, he can put the pictures where I want them, but for the version, he puts them at the end of the chapter because the beginning or the end of chapter he's figured out how to do, but he hasn't figured out how to put them in the middle. But I guess that's okay. It's not like
There's
the
a
reader knew
way
they
to
were going to
do
be
it.
there.
You have to
I
anchor
know
them
there
in the
is. I
text.
know there is, but he hadn't figured it out, so he
Well,
did it. Which I'm
I
okay with.
figured
But
it out.
yours is at the beginning, so it'd be the same thing anyway.
Well, no, it's not. So it's like each section. So when the fall section starts, there's the picture, and then
Oh,
winter
you're right.
starts out.
It's like after
So it's
the
within
headline.
each thing. You just
Yeah,
anchor it in
yeah,
the
yeah,
text. You don't place art. You anchor it in the text. It's
yeah,
it's actually, if you're used to InDesign, it makes a lot of sense. So it's like a letter basically. It works. It functions. The art then functions like a word in the text, so it stays in place.
Well, when I ever get to the next one, I may ask you how to do it. In the
And
meantime,
I
it
will
doesn't really
forget
matter.
by then. Right
But
now, in 6
what?
months, if I haven't done it again, I will forget. But that's
Yeah,
no, I know how to do it actually because I remember having to do it when I was doing hardcore layout for magazines.
yeah.
But
The other thing one can do is if one has something one really wants, like you have a letter in your story that you want to be in a special script, that could be like a picture, if you know what I mean. it could go in like a picture, so it stays in place, and you use your special, and it's not resizable like a picture isn't, but everything around it is. So there are various different ways of getting these effects, but I think you're right that you get a fuller effect with the print book.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, and that's just, impetus of someone, and I've seen people say that. They say, if I really like the ebook, if I really like the book, I'll buy a hard copy. And I think, well, the impetus to buy the hard copy is you get all the fancy layout and all that stuff. So I mean, that's one of the ways to divide them out, I think. But for an ebook, I'm just, I'm gonna do that because it's like I'm not gonna spend my life trying to figure out how to make an ebook have a certain font. It just seems like a almost as big of a waste of time as what
Yeah,
my currently going through with the
yeah,
with
yeah.
Kindle and Audible.
Particularly if the person reading it, just finds the reading experience better in a different font on their phone and would feel odd if it wasn't. You might as well leave it, and then they can get the book if they want the
Well, if
pretty.
it's very flowable, let them have it. Let them do what they want. And
Exactly.
because I always blow the size up because I have crazy eyes. So
What I don't like about the ebooks, and I've been annoyed by this for years, is they have available a number of sizes of fonts. And there's a jump at one point, like you can get small, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and then it jumps to much bigger.
Yeah,
And the size I want is the size between those two.
of course.
Like the one that would be comfortable on my phone that I can see clearly, but would not be too big. And I'm like, if you have all this available, why don't you have this extra size available? It's the one that seems like it would be the most useful on a phone, but no, it's not there.
Let's go back a little bit and talk about choosing format. So, really let's say, for simplicity, we'll say that there's 3 formats. There's ebooks, there's physical, and then there's audiobooks. Now, physical, obviously, that could be paperback, that could be hardback. There's a kabillion permutations of paperback and hardback that we could kind of venture down. Hey, Robin, what's going on? We won't necessarily get too into the weeds on that granularity, but obviously for hardback, paperback, important choices to make. But out of the gate, as I am wrapping up my audiobook mission this year, there are some things that go along with that format that I think it's easy to kind of knock out and get out of the way. So like ACX Audible requires an ebook listing as it goes for you to create and list an audiobook on their platform. Now, that is fine, whatever. That's the nature of their beast. But now there are some releases I've done this year that are, in musician parlance, covers, where I'm performing other people's material that has entered the public domain. They become audiobook exclusives, and you can do things there that you can't do in the other formats. And the thing there specifically, for me, with fiction predominantly, is that I'll do a narration only, and I will do an audio drama production, which will have sound effects, music, perhaps multi-voice productions in some cases. But many other platforms besides ACX allow you to get into distribution without regard for an ebook, an ISBN, all sorts of stuff. And even though it requires, some heavy lifting in the technical department, that is just such an opportunity. That we'll get more into that stuff in the future. But I just wanted to point out what an opportunity there is in terms of audiobooks. And for me, over the course of X number of years, my audiobooks are bumping up right at 3-to-1, in terms of moving units for compared to ebook and physical. So it has become a very good opportunity and format for me, at least over the course of me doing books. And I think, I don't want to say that has anything to do with me. I think that we are in an era of audiobook format. It has become it has growing popularity over the course of the time that I've been doing it. So I've been lucky in that regard. There's been increased distribution and channels available for those releases.
Can you list some of the places other than ACX that you post?
Yeah. So I'm on basically all of them.
I don't know what they are. That's why I was asking.
Right. Yeah. So like Google Play, Apple Books, you can put stuff up on Apple without regard for the other formats. You can get onto the Nook. You can get, I'm trying to think of the biggest ones. I would say those are really kind of the big name platforms that you would be geared towards.
A friend of mine was just mentioning a place called Chirp. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. So Chirp is connected with BookBub. I think I used to be on Chirp. I think I'm not currently on Chirp, but I should be. I might have to do a little bit of.
She likes ebooks and she doesn't like Amazon, but I can recommend some of these other places to her too. I hadn't even thought to say, "Oh, what about Apple Books?"
So Chirp. And don't quote me on this because I haven't looked into the specifics. They have not been a massive platform for me over the years. I think I've had units move on there. I'd have to look at the data to be specific. But also, I do remember there being some note about Chirp kind of changing how their system was going to work, maybe over the last year or more. And I just never really followed up on it because it wasn't something that was like popping up in the data so much that it was like, this is motivating me to go chase this down. Yeah. But this year I did sign up for BookBub and, initiated an author account over there to list my titles and stuff. I haven't done one of their email deals. But I became aware of the fact that there is a relationship between BookBub and Chirp, and it's something that is on my list to follow up. So I can hopefully give you some more info on that in the future. But let's go back to the other formats in terms of choosing the right format. I choose audiobooks. That's not first for me, but it's a priority for me. Now ebooks have they're the lowest performing up until kind of recently, and they very well might still be. It wasn't until I started to get into fiction and making cheap fiction releases, short stories, that the numbers started to increase because they became ebook only. They weren't big enough for paperbacks, and they're short stories. So ebooks have been growing for me. Print has always, on that side of things, the physical releases have always outperformed ebooks. I believe that is predominantly because of how pictorial the material is, and also the age group that engages with some of the journalistic stuff that I've done in the past. So that's just a little bit of my perspective. But why don't you guys tell us how you choose format and maybe the order that you go along for your releases?
Well, for me, I always start with the ebook. And I tried to get a paper book or possibly a hardcover up. And then we begin working on the audiobooks. And I have a friend who's the one who talked me into doing the audiobooks, and she's my narrator. She's got, got all the equipment for this. She does it for other people too. And it can take a long time. Like book 6 is super, super long. So we're still working on it, even though the book's been out for a while. But we redid book 1 recently. So that delayed book 6, because book 1, she did it quite a while ago, and she has much better equipment now. Also, she changed a few of the voices, so she got them kind of more in sync with the way she did them later. And usually, I some of my stuff is on Kindle Unlimited. Most of it isn't. But I haven't had much success with other platforms. So when in the early days, I would go put things on other platforms. Like I have my 6 books up on Kobo and stuff like that. Nowadays, I almost never do, because it's like, okay, maybe I've made $2 that way, But one thing I was trying to figure out, and I'll have to go look it up, is since we did our ebooks through like because we didn't know any other way of doing them, we did them through ACX, where I was the author and then I requested a narrator and she's the narrator. So I'm trying to find out if they have exclusivity because of that, or if we could take those files and post them somewhere else.
Sorry, one more time on that. Who has exclusivity on what?
I'm trying to figure out whether ACX has exclusivity on the audiobook because we did it as if I was letting them, like, as if they promoted narrators to me, and I picked one of their narrators just because that was the only way she knew to do it, because that's what she's done before.
Did you check the exclusivity box on there?
What I'm saying is that I don't remember, so I have to go back and figure it out.
Well, it's easy to look if you're logged in.
Well, I will. I'm not near my computer right now, but I will go figure it out, because I just didn't know if when you did it this way, there was a special exclusivity thing with it or not. Because if I could undo exclusivity, I think it might be fun to try to see if we could possibly upload it somewhere else.
Couple notes on that.
So, done in separate chapters, though, so I don't know.
That's not a problem. That's what you want, actually. So the thing about working with the narrator, that's not where the exclusivity comes from. The exclusivity comes from the platform. So when you're creating the title, when you're claiming the title, it's going to give you the option. Do you want to be exclusive here? You'll get a higher percentage, or are you planning to go wide with it on other platforms and you get a lower percentage? I think it's 40 and 25 or whatever. Now, when you open up your ACX and you're looking at your title, it'll tell you your exclusivity agreement for each one of those titles. And I'm pretty sure, now I've never done that because I do all the production and uploading myself, but I'm pretty sure that you can download those files off of ACX. But hold on, let me just open it up.
Sure,
you know what? I can't get in there and tell you because I'm locked out of my account.
No, it's okay. I'm pretty sure I can too, because I think I did once. And I had just been thinking, I think I'd like to download them all and put them on Dropbox just so I have my own copy, But I'll have to check. But I'm pretty sure that I can. And it would be good to do that just in case they lock my account or something, Take a while. Like the book 6 it's not up there yet, but it has 52 chapters. So, I mean, it take a while of downloading to get all 6 books. But I think I might try to do that just to have a backup. What I was saying more was that because the financial agreement with ACX is splitting the money between me and the narrator, because that's the way they do it when you do it this way. I don't know if there's something in that type of contract that says, you can't go somewhere else, because there's no reason I couldn't put it up somewhere else and just send her half the money. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that portion of the agreement. You very well might.
That's what I was wondering, whether that kind of agreement comes in with something saying you can't put it somewhere else or not. I'll look into it just because it might be fun for us to put it up somewhere else.
Is there, in any case, for any of the releases that you've made or that John has made, where you have paid the narrator outright instead of doing the split.
No.
Gotcha.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. John has a couple of things up, and I think that the guy said that he's in the Actors Guild, so he could do it volunteer and just get half. But if we paid him, we'd have to pay him at a certain amount. Now,
That scale.
I've paid him for my little videos where he was doing the narration for the video. But I think for the 2 books he did for John, he just did them through the ACX 50/50 split thing. So I don't think we've done anything. We haven't paid through ACX any money over above the split.
Gotcha. Heidi, how do you choose format?
Format?
Yeah.
In regard to what?
In terms of releasing your books, maybe it is a factor of time. Maybe it's a marketing choice. Maybe it's ease. Who knows? You know?
I pretty much stick with KDP and Audible because
No, I mean in terms of like ebook, physical, audiobook, that scheme.
At this point I would say I did the physical book first for Jack's house, the house that Jack built. And then I just got the ebook out today. Part of that was me figuring the software out. I'm getting better at this as we go. And I pretty much do everything myself. So, it takes more time, when you're doing the layout, when you're doing everything. So I'll do the audiobook next. That book is short. I don't think the audiobook will be maybe 2.5, 3 hours tops. So because it's a novella, right? So, I should be able to do that pretty quickly at this point because of the learning experience I had last year doing an audiobook. So I have it all down, and I think, getting that mic, I changed my setup, so it's a lot better setup now. Thank you, sir, for your advice and guidance on that. Um, so for me, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I'm right now what I'm trying in terms of distribution and marketing, I'm trying to figure out right now is with the base book sale coming up. I was DMing you that. Do I put both books in or do I just put the house that Jack built
Put them
in?
both in. Put them both in.
You think?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Jaji?
If one book leads directly to the other book, then you only need to put the first one and hope that they would know. But in your case, where the 2 books are kind of almost side by side, it seems to me you could put them both in and give it a shot. I mean, it's only like 1 week's worth of time that they're at a cheaper. And if you don't like it, then in the future just put in one. But
Well, I put the desert in a couple of times. So it sold really well in the first one, and then it didn't do much in the second one. I think everybody had already sort of purchased it.
yeah,
So
that often happens. But
so
you could
I'm
just try the new one.
thinking that's why I'm sort of thinking maybe just the house that Jack built in this one, but
Here's why I'm suggesting both is because this will be the first time that people are going to see Jack's house in there, but you will have visual recognition of your cover image when they're scrolling to where they'll see the previous release, and that object permanence is going to give them, the potential to recognize your name, see the other stuff there.
So you're thinking having it there might sell more of Jack, even if nobody buys the first one.
Perhaps. And then also, I think that those 2 books really are getting after 2 vastly different audiences.
well, you and I can argue that point, but I understand that
They might appeal. They might appeal to different audiences, but I think there's a large overlap. If you had a Venn diagram of the 2 audiences, the middle section would not be small.
Yeah, this is the thing. I get what you're saying. I'm getting that you're saying that the desert is more female coded, obviously, and the house that Jack built is male coded. So, this is kind of your point, but I think,
I think that
well,
matters less with this audience audience, because if you have a general population and you're gonna get women with the women and men with the men. But if you have a population of people who like science fiction and some fantasy,
Fantasy.
the women tend to read the male coded stuff anyway. You know what I'm saying? They're already reading that kind of stuff. So I think with this group, you may be appealing to more the same audience than you would with a larger group.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I see the point. I kind of like your point, Michael, about the object permanence. And I like the idea too. I think it for me, I think it shows, it gives me a little more gravitas to have two of them in there. I think might be your point as well. And that might not be a bad idea for doing it for marketing. I mean, it's for a week. So, that you make a good point with both of those statements. So, the only thing I've got to figure out is if it'll let me put this desert on sale again, because you know how KDP only allows you to drop the price for
So what
certain
we
amount of
do,
times.
what we do with that, because I missed so many of these sales because I had already done something with KDP somewhat recently.
Yeah.
Until someone finally pointed out,
Manually change the price.
choose to just switch to 35% and put the price down manually, which is what I do with some of my books now. Like my books that aren't in KU, I can still put them in the sale, but I have to do that. So you have the choice of. I mean, it's nicer to do it through their deal because you get more money, but you still can do it the other way if you want it in there for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had to do that in one of the smaller sales.
Every 3 months, I'm pretty sure it is. The thing
Yeah.
I find really frustrating about them is that not only do they let you do it every 3 months, only every 3 months, but if you're near the beginning, if you're near the end of your period of that you've signed up for KDP, or near the beginning of renewal, they don't let you do it. And I'm like, why can't I go ahead? Why can't they have something where I click in and say, yes, I'm going for the next time, and now I can put my book on sale for big sale? But no, you'll be happily in KDP, and you haven't done it in 6 months, but your renewal date is 5 days away, or even 8 days away sometime, and they just won't let you put it on sale. And I find that really frustrating.
Well, here's where I think I was going with not so much what KDP wants, but in terms of, putting your book out and maintaining its, for lack of a better term, value. How often do you as the author choose to put it on sale? That's kind of, I think, was what my question was in regards to that. You don't want to devalue
Good question.
the product.
If you are keeping your prices up, now here's an alternative. The stuff that I list on the based book sale is already 99 cents. No price change.
You're like the supermarket.
Yeah. It's an impulse buy.
I put things down for it, and then sometimes I forget to put them back up, which led to the really embarrassing outcome that my book, which I had lowered to the 35 and put on sale for 99 cents for the recent sale, it took it out of foreign distribution, so that when I was in England, my book was not available. My first book was not available in ebook in Amazon UK. So I mean, people would say, "Oh, you're an author. Oh, that's exciting!" And they'd look and they couldn't get the book, and that was. It never occurred to me to that. I didn't even know that happened when you did that.
Yeah.
So that was really disappointing to me. So all I could do was give him my little postcard and say, "Try next week. I'll fix it when I get home."
Here's another thing that we kind of glossed over at the beginning of the program, which we typically do on the workshops, which is updates, check-ins, progress reports. And, Robin, you're up here, you're hanging out. We haven't heard from you yet. How is your progress?
Oh, well, thank
since
you for
last month.
asking. Yeah, this is the kind of workshop where I'm basically going to hang back because I'm intimidated by all of your knowledge and my very little knowledge about the publishing industry, the indie publishing. So I'm really, here to listen. But thank you for asking. I just finished chapter 6 of 7 in my novella, and I expect to be done with chapter 7, the final chapter, in 2 weeks. And then I have to do one more round because I made some clumsy, not editing, but formatting mistakes. So I'm pretty pleased with it. My book is going to be ready for my test readers. Either if it's not mid-December, I'm going to wait till January, and then I'll do a rewrite, and probably it'll be ready for all of this that we're talking about, probably somewhere between May and July. So I'll probably have questions later on. It all seems very intimidating. And the other book, Mission Infinity, I'm continuing to query once a week because it takes like an hour and a half, to send these, intricate queries to these publishers. And I haven't really heard it. I actually did hear from one person who wanted a full manuscript, but there's a long story to that. So I did get a request for full manuscript after I sort of sent an out-of-the-box request to a sci-fi magazine that does not accept full books, and I sort of sold them on, hey, isn't it time for you to go into the publishing industry and try to publish a whole book? I have a book for you. So they were very excited about it. They requested my manuscript, but the sort of the chink in the armor is they are thinking that they want to serialize if it's worth serializing in their magazine. But I don't think my book is serializable. So, but I still have more things that I'm going to tell them later if they ever get back to me. But it's just the long process with Mission Infinity of trying to be patient. And then again, Sal Grundy, I'm in the middle of writing it, and that one I'm really going to try to do what you guys all do, is really just to put it up as an indie, novella. And again, this is all very, this is new to me, so it's all very kind of overwhelming hearing all of this stuff. And I hope that at some point I'll, pick up enough pointers to do it. And I forget, Jaji was talking about a website, which I'm not at my computer right now, but I have it down in my spreadsheet of things to look into. It's a website about indie publishing. They help you with different aspects of it, and I may be very interested in that. So thank you.
Follow-up question. What do you have against serialization?
Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing against serialization. I don't think that my book, which is a slow kind of philosophical, I don't think that, I don't know, I may be wrong, but I think it's more of a slow read, whereas I've read some serials on Substack, which I love, and they're fast paced and they're funny and they're quippy. Mine is slow and philosophical, and I don't know that anybody's going to want to read chapter by chapter each week for that. I may be wrong. It may be a misjudgment, but that's sort of what I'm thinking.
So let's think that maybe the people doing that publication know their audience, and also that they don't have to serialize it chapter by chapter. They could basically break it up however they would want to and put it out there.
Well, that's true. That's true. My end game, though, if it happens, and I don't know. I sent it to them, I think, 2-3 weeks ago. I haven't heard from them. If and when they get back to me, and if they said yes, I'm going to push for at the end. I would, you're already formatting it. Why don't we just make it as a book at the end for, at the end of the serialization? Let's just turn it into a book, because that's really what I want. I want it as a book. So.
I do think some works are ace for serialization. and other works are not necessarily based for serialization. And while they might be able to do it, it's not going to be as natural as that. You know,
That's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong, but I looked at when they said serializing, I'm like, oh, all right, well, you be the judge, but I think this is a slow read.
Jaji or Heidi, progress reports.
I started my next book of the 2 romance books. I got about a chapter done, and then I'm putting on a hold because I owe someone a short story. So I think I'd like to get the short story done before I really get into the next book. And it's like all I'm thinking about. So I haven't started that yet, but I've begun gathering together the information I need for it. But then I got an editing job, which I have kind of semi-retired, but now I'm doing that. So that's what I'm doing right now, is editing someone else's book, and then I'll write the short story. And then I'll get back to the novel, which I'm pretty pleased with how far I've gotten. But I have the thing is pretty well laid out plot-wise, but except for the beginning, where there's a lot of new information that wasn't in our original outline that we want to decide whether it goes there or we just flash back to it later at appropriate points. So it's going to take a little wrestling to actually, get the first 2 or 3 chapters really flowing. And so I figure I should get the short story done before I do that.
One thing at a time. I feel for you in terms of taking on multiple projects and not being able to dedicate into one particular thing, or that one thing dominating your attention to the point where you can't have this other stuff lingering on the peripheral.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also just trying to read. My son finished his second novel, and I really liked his first one. But I'm doing with that the same thing I did with the first one, which is just read a couple pages a day before I do my own work. And that worked with the first one until it got really good. And then I forgot to do my own work and just read it for 2 days. But that's not the worst thing either. So that's also there. But I'm it's because it's kind of a slow burn project. It's less intimidating.
Reasonable. Heidi, do we have you? Are you here?
Yeah, I am. It's just somebody tried to call in, so I muted for a moment.
I am here. How are you?
I'm good. Tell us about
what are you doing, Heidi?
Progress.
Giving Michael crap. But other than that, I'm trying to get the Jack's House stuff dealt with. So I'm very proud of myself that I figured out a nice, easy process for putting together my ebooks that pull from the same file as the hard copies. So that was my major accomplishment yesterday. So that's going to make it a lot easier for me going forward. Yeah. So there's that. So I'm going to probably I'd like to have a hardcover of it because I just like to have all 3. I'm going to do the audiobook for that. Probably I could maybe sort of start that after Thanksgiving. Might be a little rough trying to do it over Christmas, but we'll see how that plays. And I've got the Ford. I'm editing it. I'm at chapter 20, and it is standing at, let's see, is it 48 chapters? Yeah. So I'm at chapter 20. I'm roughly getting moving along, as they say. I've got a couple chapters. I've got some sections I need to rework a little bit. And I've got in my head a side novel for this book before I do the third book in the main series, shall we say. So I'm toying with starting that, but I think I need to finish all the bits of Jack's House first before I do. But I kind of need to know what happens in that little side novel quite clearly before I completely finish the fort, which I'm hoping to finish next year. Be able to put it out. Oh yeah.
Let's be honest. You've been ripping this year. You got the audiobook out and released in the summer. You got Jack's House out this fall. Working on, I think you could start the audiobook now. You could just rip that in a couple of sessions and then do the editing as you'd like over the course of however much time that takes you. Just do all the recording sessions and
I
get all
guess
that stuff done.
it really just depends on Thanksgiving, because I got to do all of that. I did. So it's basically, so that's the only thing, is it's like the other part of my life is a little consuming.
That's next week. Yeah. So
It's next week, and I
It's
still
a
have
lot of juggling.
Yeah, so that's the only thing. That's
My happy
why I
thing.
say I'm not going to start
Go ahead.
until December, because I know next week's going to be a free for all. So as they say, right? Yeah.
My happy thing for Thanksgiving is that the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I've had to go to 2 Thanksgiving dinners on the same day. And because of a change in who is going where, I've managed to convince them both to come to me. So I only have
Good
to
for
do one.
you. Yeah, it's worth cooking for that, right?
It's not only cooking, but it's a lot of eating, you know? You either don't eat as much as you want or you get too stuffed, you know? And it's much nicer
Yeah,
just to have one
it's
meal. So
like,
we're just
you
going
know,
to do one meal at our place this time.
my son is still going to be in England for Thanksgiving. Obviously, he's not going to fly back, but he's going to be home like December 3rd. But so I guess him and the crew that are over there are going to go to a castle or something. So I'm like,
Cool.
sounds nice.
Thanksgiving castle visit.
Yeah. So, but so it's pretty small. Um, and so I'm trying to balance it, because I'm kind of one of these people who, have you ever been to someone's house where they don't make enough food? You know? And it's like everybody's like all uptight. I know it's a sad, sad thing. It's like if you're gonna have a dinner party, especially Thanksgiving, but it's
Yeah.
like you need to make too much food. You need to have
Right.
people
And
going,
have plenty
oh
of
my God, I
leftovers.
can't
You know?
eat it. And like, no, take it home. Take it. I mean, it's just rude not to.
I agree. I
And
agree.
I hate when people do that. So I'm trying to balance this out, because I just, anyway. So I mean, that's why I'm hesitant to start the audiobook when I know I've got Thanksgiving coming.
Yeah, it might be better just to start it in beginning of December and just feel a little bit relaxed for what's coming next week.
I don't know if there's relaxing for it, but it's a lot of just all of this overdoing everything. So
But this is a really good point just on the subject, because we're talking about the different things that you do and how you put things up and what platforms. And part of it is there's also life, and that things don't always get out all together or in the same order. I almost always have ebooks out for a while before I get print books out, even on the Fantastic Schools, because getting the wrap covers is always, it takes a lot more work. I get a cover, and then sometimes the artist will do the wrap cover. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll do the uh, blurb on the back. Sometimes so it can be a while, and you have to resize it sometimes. So you have to kind of plan these things out, and sometimes we can plan them around a holiday that's appropriate, or in a release or something. And sometimes they trickle out, and it's not as organized as we want, but it's life. We have other things going on in our life, and we're really happy if we can get this working. But I guess it's nice if there's a connection between, like, that your story is good for Valentine's Day, so you try to get everything together and get it out at once. But when it's not something like that, I don't think it matters as much if it comes out this piece first and then that piece. What do you think, Michael? Do you think they have to come out together, or do you think it's okay for them to come out separately?
I think it's really valuable to stage out the releases, because then you have multiple things to promote around, as well as you capture segments of your audience, in the sense that, look, if you put out the paperback, hardback first, there's people that love your work, and they're going to pick that up immediately. If you offer the ebook, which is typically cheaper, then you're kind of you might be potentially limiting your reach and exposure for the physicals. So that's my thinking. Now,
It's really interesting because, of course, the ease of it makes it so that it's much easier to get the ebook out. So I've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Never thought of just holding the ebook for a while and getting the paper book out first in case anybody's desperate and wants to grab it.
Same thing goes, with trad publishing. You'll see they'll put out a hardback initially, and then you'll see it in paperback. Now that is a little bit different for some of the things that I've done this year, which have been ebook and audiobook pairings, where I've put those out almost at the exact same time in some cases, or within a couple of weeks of each other to basically, meet my deadlines. And also, really, again, going back to ACX, their requirement of having an ebook to put out an audiobook. So you have to have the ebook listed to claim the title and then put the audio stuff up on the platform. Robin, you've had your hand raised for a minute. I don't want you to feel neglected.
No, I don't feel neglected at all. I just want, did not mention, and I wanted to mention, we were talking about just now publishing on different venues and sort of working on all cylinders, which reminded me, I don't know how I forgot, my podcast, Our Data, Our Future, a small podcast with big ideas. The second episode dropped today on Substack. So for anybody who is interested, you can go on my Substack and watch I think it's like 8-minute podcast about data hoarding. And one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons that I'm doing this, not only because it's, data and all that is interesting to me, I think that it might make a good, I don't know if the word is tie-in, but it's something else that I'm doing so that when my book gets published, I can sort of say, hey, I have a podcast too, so.
Fully on board with that perspective. And if you've tweeted out a link, why don't you put that link up in the nest for us?
Yeah, I will do that. I put it this morning. There was a problem with X with this the cloud problems, right? Which I'm going to be writing an article, a very snarky article about soon. Anyway, but
give Cloudflare a break. No, I'm
not giving anybody. Not giving anybody a break on this. I'm going to liken them to used car salesmen, but that's coming out in a few weeks anyway. But I dropped it on in my general post. I'll put the post to the writer's block later.
Perf. Well, I meant up here even. So let's steer back into the outline from the check-ins, which I, so foolishly forgot early on.
Before we steer back, let me just say to Robin, what he means is there's a way, and it's a little complicated, but there's a way on Twitter to post an existing tweet to this space so that anybody who hits the chat and comments from this space will also see your tweet.
Well, I'm going to try to do that without getting kicked off this site.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do the wrong thing and I leave.
It's kind of complicated, and you probably can Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you understood what he was suggesting you do.
I did. Thank you.
So, while you sort that out, I don't know if you're on mobile or if you're on desktop. Functionality works on both, I think. I don't use the desktop too much. Kind of depends on what I'm doing. But let's talk about distribution options. Obviously, the monolith, the elephant of self-publishing is Amazon, KDP, and Audible ACX. Necessary evils in the world today for us. I have my tune has been changed, as my love affair with Jeff Bezos over the last couple of years has been scuffed since last week when my KDP account was terminated erroneously, and that cascaded down to my ACX account, which I am still in the process of recovering. I will say that the majority of my units move on those platforms. It's you got to be there. Like I said, the print on demand service, fantastic. The ebook options in terms of their apps, their devices, gosh, just absolute dominance there. Audible, I think everybody is aware of, how they kind of dominate as a retailer and also as a production and distribution platform on the ACX side, which also will put you on Apple Books, oddly enough. Now, you got to have all that stuff if you want any sort of purchase in the space at an indie level. I would argue that even trad publishing can't get away from Amazon at this point. They've had 30 years to roll out across the landscape and kind of seal things up and become a massive competitor to the traditional physical brick and mortar book distribution channels. Obviously, Barnes and Noble is still out there, but let's focus on these other options that we have. I think, predominantly, if you're trying to position yourself as a trad appearing author, you need to be aware of Ingram Spark. Now, if you want an alternative for print on demand, then you have Lulu. If you are wanting another kind of standalone platform for your ebooks, then Smashwords is an option. They have been recently purchased by Draft2Digital. Now, Draft2Digital is a third-party distribution platform which will put you on, just a slew of these other downstream ebook platforms like Apple Books and Kobo and Nook and the rest. Now, I'm not doing enough of those things explicitly. I've lapsed over the last 5 or 6 years and have not kept up with that. After this recent episode, I promise you that is going to change. I might make it my mission for next year to once a month begin to pursue wider distribution for my existing catalog to exist on these other platforms, just as a fail-safe, temporary or otherwise, against what has transpired over the last week with Amazon and ACX. Thoughts, criticisms, and other ephemera in regards to interfacing with any of those that I named, or even any of the others. And we will get to the audiobook stuff after this, because I know that there's a lot of other specifics there, but we'll get there.
Absolutely no disagreement with anything you said. I was just going to kind of list a couple more. There's Kobo, which I've mentioned before. They used to have a deal with Walmart, and I thought that was going to turn out really well, but really nothing seemed to come of it. And then they broke their deal with Walmart. So they're I don't know who broke it, but it's separate now.
Yeah.
There's having your own store. So Tuscany Bay Books, which is the publisher for my husband's Star Quest series, just opened their own bookstore, ebook store this week. They're using something called Hostinger to make the website. People use Spotify. There's a program called BookSpy where it's like $100 for a year to be able to do something like this. I haven't tried it yet, but it sounded hopeful. So one thing that you can do is have your own website where you're selling your own books. And the reason that Tuscany Bay decided to do it was just that they've heard so many horror stories with people on Amazon. They said, we need, in case something goes wrong with Amazon, we want to have our own place. So they've put the books up there. For right now, it's just ebooks, and they're slightly cheaper than Amazon, but the author gets a slightly more money. So, it's a nice deal if you can get people to go there to buy them. And they're planning to put out old-fashioned pulp, mass market size paperbacks, because it said, that's not something that's really kind of pushed by Amazon. So it'd be something a little different. And some people still really like that size from the old days. So he's going to eventually, and he's looking at Ingram and Lulu and some of the other options to decide what's putting out the best book. On the subject of Amazon and printing, for the most part, I've been quite pleased with their printing. But in the last 2 weeks, we received one book that started on page 91. Now, they replaced it, but that was still strange. I mean, we almost, if John hadn't had to sign it, we would have sent it off to somebody, not knowing that the first 91 pages were missing. And I brought a book with me my husband and I went to talk at my son's writing club at his college. This is like the third time we've done that. They're great kids. But I brought a copy of my own book, and I tried to show the illustrations. And inside the lettering is super faint. Like it's not dark black. It's like gray, which is not supposed to be. I haven't had a chance to go check the rest of the books to see if they're like that too or not. But, it's just kind of weird to get weird permeations in the printing. So on the good side, Amazon seems to be pretty good about, at least with the one that was not printed properly, they replaced it like that. So, we had to send the book back that was wrong, but they paid for that, and then they sent the new one, and we just got it. So, they seem supportive, but it's still a little creepy that it happened. But anyway, I've just mentioned a couple of them, but they're, and Barnes and Noble, at one point, I think you can get any ebook up onto their Nook thing, but there is a process for trying to get into the store. And I started it once, and it was so complicated and involved marketing plans and stuff that I knew nothing about, that I never finished it. I don't know, maybe it'd be worth it to go back and try again. It'd be really nice to have books in the bookstore, but it looked like something where you had to have, experience in areas I didn't. And I went and asked somebody who, should have known what to do, and he wasn't sure either.
That's interesting.
Kind of faltered at that point. They've undergone a change of management since then, and I haven't looked since then. I don't know if it's still available or if it's gotten easier, but it is something that'd be kind of cool to do. The last thing that I'm now thinking about after this recent law case is, so the Anthropic case?
Anthropic
case?
Gotcha.
Sorry, I often don't read large words in my head. I just know what they look like, and then I go to pronounce them. I don't know what they are. They listed like a bunch of my husband's books were included with the books that were read, but they're only willing to pay out for the books that are copyrighted with the Library of Congress, even though we've been being told for years that it was exactly the same and you didn't have to do that. So now I'm thinking I want to try to see, what the steps are. And I tried this once before, and it was almost impossible. You had to say you were a publisher to do the process back then. And that was some years ago. So maybe it's easier now. I don't know. But now I'd really like to copyright my books, which I hadn't been bothering with before because the law said you didn't need to. So
here's the thing. I don't know how you say anthropic. It very well might be anthropic, and it doesn't really potato to me. I was just more or less confirming that it occurred to me what it was you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I think more of those same sort of scenarios are going to come down the pipeline in the coming years.
Right. So maybe more of the books should be copyrighted, if that's going to make a difference. Someone told me that it was actually law that you had to be copyrighted through the Copyright Office to get a payout in a law case on a copyright issue, which I had never heard before. But, now I feel like, it might be just worth it to take the time and effort to figure out how to do this for some of our books. So that's another issue of when you're putting your book out, something to think about that before I didn't really worry about because, all I knew was that the law said it was copyrighted either way. So, why go through the trouble of fighting with them? But
let's scratch even a little further under the surface of the line of thinking that you're talking about as it relates to the distribution issues you were having on that one platform. How do you feel about ISBNs?
Me?
Yeah.
So at one point, one of the people I was working with paid for me to have enough money to have 100 of them.
You're living.
I have a lot of ISBNs at my disposal, so I use them all the time. But recently I started not using them for the stuff I was doing with PubShare because they found it easier to just use the Amazon ones, rather than because otherwise we put them in the file, but then they're in the ebook and it's not the same one. You know what I mean? It was a little complicated. So
that's interesting that you say that because my understanding is that Amazon does not allow other organizations to utilize their ISBN/AI, or I'm sorry, ASIN. I don't consider it to be an ISBN. I consider it to be just a placeholder for their ASIN. However, I also don't think that ISBNs are a good thing. I think that's a cartel organization operating like a criminal organization. They're the mafia of international books. That's how I perceive Boker and ISBNs.
I guess I like them because way long ago, I used to have access to a book where you could go look up ISBNs for old books and things like that. So I came from, way long ago, before I was publishing anything, came from the side of identifying books I wanted to find through ISBN. So I appreciated having them. And I've used them to do things like at one point, or even now, I guess, I have the same ISBN on because because I bought it, I have it on Ingram. It took a while to get Amazon and Ingram to understand that I wasn't stealing from the other one or something, but eventually I got it so that I had one ISBN and they both were using the same one for the trade paperback version.
It's so hilarious and so stupid, and that's the exact reason their entire purpose for existing is to make that issue not exist.
Yeah.
It's so aggravating to think that you're doing the quote unquote right thing, and here you are interfacing with these organizations that are looking at you as if you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and it was complicated. It was complicated to get them to shake hands on it,
crime.
But I'm like, I own that book, it's my ISBN. So, I have never really thought about whether we shouldn't have them because I came from they're really useful when looking at books from the past and trying to figure out what version and things like that. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I've never thought about what we would do instead to identify books, if we didn't have. But I do sometimes think it's kind of weird that it's just a private company. I mean, the identifiers and Balker and stuff. This one private company is providing all this stuff, and maybe there should be another option, another way to list books if you didn't want to do it this way, or just a place you could file a number or something.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. It should be an open source protocol that all of us are able to tap into, and it should not be controlled by a private organization. That's my feeling of it. They're a criminal cartel organization, and they should be ripped out root and stem.
Interesting. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Sometimes you just you don't have an opinion on something because you've never considered it. So I will now have to start thinking about it.
Much to consider. Let us, in the meantime, get into some of these other audiobook details. There's been a lot of movement in the audiobook world over the last 6 months, honestly. 2025 there's been a shakeup, So as I was saying before, you really can't avoid ACX, Audible. You got to be there. It's my number one retailer. Okay. Now that is to say that when we talk about books and units, you have retail, and you have wholesale, and you have libraries. Now, if you are only on ACX, say you sign the exclusivity deal, you're probably not going to be in any libraries with your audiobook. I am not aware of any libraries that work with Amazon or ACX. I'm not saying it doesn't occur. I'm saying I'm not aware. So what I was informed of a number of years ago, I used to co-moderate a space on Clubhouse for indie publishing. This was maybe 3-4 years ago. And I learned a lot. I was working on my third release, nonfiction. And, these guys had been doing it for a little while. They were basically utilizing the platform as a way to sell their services, which were a little predatory, but whatever, not my business. I wasn't on that side of things. It was really just a way for me to promote and discuss and learn. I crossed paths with a guy who had been working with authors to narrate or produce their audiobooks, and he told me about Findaway, and that was when the world opened up to me. Findaway is essentially like Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital, and it allows you to put your audiobooks into 50 platforms globally, including Apple Books and ACX, Audible, KDP, Amazon.
So it's the Draft to Digital of audiobooks.
Right. It's one of them. There are a few. Findaway, a few years after I got into it, was purchased by Spotify as they were kind of like acquiring these audio creation and distribution platforms. The other one that they acquired in about the same time was called Anchor, which was for podcast creation and distribution. I've used Anchor. They were acquired by Spotify. I used Findaway. They were acquired by Spotify. Now,
kind of like Audible being acquired by Amazon and Lightning Source being acquired by Ingram.
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. Something happened with Spotify and their interest in audiobooks along the way, or dealing with the distribution to other third-party platforms, whatever, the shape of that might be. I don't know. But the two original founders of Findaway decided that they wanted to reacquire the platform, Findaway. And for whatever reason, Spotify agreed. That led to an announcement in this past spring that Spotify was going to be launching a new platform called Spotify for Authors. This begins to resemble a Gordian knot. For me, it was like, why do I want to deal with another platform? You guys already have distribution here. It wasn't clear to me until some additional digging, all of this background information about the original founders reacquiring Findaway, and the relationship with Spotify, whatever the case might be over there. I really don't know, don't really care. Now, in July, I think it was, that was kind of the cutoff date for automated distribution to Spotify through Findaway. And you were able to automatically create an account on Spotify for authors, which would pull all your data and maintain all the listings and do all the billing and all the rest. So now Findaway has relaunched, and purely just a branding relaunch, not a platform relaunch. Nothing has changed in terms of their interface. Little slight design changes, but nothing major. They have rebranded Findaway as In Audio. Now, everything is the same there, except you cannot distribute to Spotify through In Audio. You have to go through Spotify for Authors to put your audiobooks up on Spotify. That said, and I'll get back to more of that in a second, there's a competing platform called Authors Republic. They function very much like Findaway In Audio. They don't do direct deposit. They only do PayPal for processing payments, which, again, now you're dealing with another third-party platform and all the headaches that go along with that and everything else.
A lot of smaller places do that. Obviously, you lose a little more money that way, but it's not that unusual.
Right. So it's not the end of the world, but it is what it is. They seem to be much more accessible, I will say that, in terms of getting timely responses. Findaway In Audio has been an utter mess since this summer, to the point where I've actually been considering moving my stuff or just doing new releases on the other platform. Now, that said, if you do that, it means you have to take down all your listings, and then you have to relist them and reapply to the platforms that you were already approved and listed to. You know how long that takes. Could be a month. So, chosen not to do that. In turn, Spotify for Authors, let's talk about another criminal organization. Spotify sucks. One of the worst entities in the entire tech space, for sure. Just totally heinous actors. I'm talking, I got my invoice from them for October. It said I sold X number of compiled units, right, for like total listens through books, which was, some number. I'm not looking at it right now, but somehow through their Hollywood accounting, I got zero payout from Spotify for multiple total listens because they do pool payment. Now, pool payment falls under technically retail, but it isn't an outright purchase. It's when subscribers are paying a monthly subscription fee and they're allowed to listen to X amount of material. So, long story short, I'm very heavily considering removing my stuff off of Spotify for Authors and the Spotify platform for next year. I might leave some obscure things up there that underperform. I don't really know. I can tell you if I'm getting full listens and making no money because of their pool payment, fuck Spotify outright. Like, I hate that company.
That's outrage. It's absolutely outrageous.
It's
if
criminal.
they have a full payment, they have to pay people.
Right.
That's crazy. So, nothing?
Zero. I'm not even pennies.
How is that possible? I mean, if you've got a full, I don't.
Because it does not reflect a significant portion of the total pool amount of money. It must be a negligible amount against the pool, which is just, again, and this is the same thing that musicians have been griping about with Spotify for years and years. They are a criminal organization. I fear the fact that they are pursuing video streaming as well, and we'll be getting into that into the next couple of years so they can more completely compete with Netflix and YouTube. Stuff that I've been thinking about for a number of years. I hate Spotify. I hate them And just talking about this is making me want to go delist my titles on their platform.
That sounds terrible. Wow. Wow. It's almost the opposite of the old free codes on Audible. I don't know if you were part of that, but
Yeah.
up to a certain point, if you gave away a free code, you got paid.
Yeah.
And then there were websites where you could put your extra free codes and you get, people would download them and get paid. But of course, that wasn't what they really wanted.
Right.
So they got rid of the paying you for the free codes. Now the free codes are just free. But it was a really nice thing for a little while there.
So let's rewind just a little bit to library distribution for audiobooks, because I think that people are unaware of just how valuable that is.
Yeah, I had no idea until you started talking about it.
Yeah. So when you are a member of a library, you might have access to their digital collection. I do. So I have a number of library cards. I'm able to log into Libby and get books from different libraries around the country. Now, some of these libraries will either outright purchase the book, so it's permanently in their catalog, or they will use these other services which are pay per use. Obviously, the pay per use is much lower, but you can get a book out multiple times, which is to say that if you are reading a long book that takes, X number of requests to complete, then that author is going to get paid for each time that you take the book out. On the retail side, when a library purchases it and you're listing it on Findaway, they will allow you to list a separate price for libraries. And oftentimes it recommends approximately 2x the amount of typical retail, with the assumption that if it's in their permanent catalog, more than one person at some point is going to listen to that book. So you have a great kind of windfall for these retail purchases from libraries when they do that, because they're paying above the retail rate for it. Libraries, I think I told you guys that last week or something when we were doing the planning session. I don't remember what it was, but libraries represent a significant amount of audiobook units. And again, a lot of my audiobooks are short. However, because they will be doing this pay per use thing, I'm making the same, or even in some cases more than what I make off of ACX Audible for each library use. Much to consider, much to think about.
That's really fascinating. I used to, in the old days when I was with Tor, and if anybody doesn't know Tor, they were, and maybe even still are, the primary science fiction fantasy New York publisher, and they're part of Macmillan now. I used to get library sales, which were really nice, and it was fun to have the books in the library. But I haven't really, dealing just with Amazon, I haven't really done that much with it. I looked once into trying to get into, I think it's called Overdrive, which is one of the ebook things that libraries pull from. And again, it was one of these things.
And audiobook.
Well, back then I didn't have the audiobooks. This was time ago.
Oh, okay.
But
Overdrive owns Libby.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, the paperwork was beyond what I, found that I was worth my time at the time. But it probably would be something that'd be worth to go back and look into at some point. I'm glad you brought it up. It's one of these things that was like had fallen off my radar, and now that you remind me, I think it might be worth a little more looking.
Any thoughts on audiobook distribution, working with libraries, which again, I'm missing out on libraries on the ebook side because I have not pursued that. I need to.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, I think. I love the idea, but I have to go back and look at ACX and see whether the setup there is exclusive and if there's any way to change it, and then talk to my narrator, who would be delighted by any of these things I
Right.
could afford, but we'd have to
ACX
work out how to do it.
ACX is exclusive for like 7 years. It's kind of, if you sign up for that for the
Yeah.
70%, if you do the 35%, then you can do whatever you want, but you only get 35% of the door.
You're mixing up the percentages on ACX. It's 25 and 40.
Yeah, 35 to 70 is Amazon. But mine is a
No, I
different.
think ACX is really bad. It's like they take is it 60/40 on ACX?
If you're exclusive, yeah.
You guys have no idea how good you guys have it. Tor gave us 6%. You got when you back in
Well,
you
thank
got
you for that,
6%.
Georgie. Honestly, I really appreciate you saying that, because I'm all sitting here going, they're only giving me 40% after I did everything, and all they're doing is hosting it. But we
You
need to
had
work
this
that out.
goal back in the old trad days that if you did really well and you were like a really big author, you might get 10%. So, to me, these numbers are still great, even though obviously we'd like even more.
Well, context is everything, isn't it? So, no, I appreciate you saying that. So, I mean, I don't know. Does ACX doesn't go into the library? You have to do
It
that
does not.
separately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my issue was that I
They
went
would.
through
They'd
their
make more
system
money.
where they think they were picking the narrator for me and they split the money. So whether or not you can get that to be non-exclusive, I don't know. I have to go look into it. We hadn't really been aware back when we started that there were other options, so we had never really thought about it.
Yeah.
But I should talk to her about it, because we haven't finished putting up this new book. We could pull it down and try to do it a different way or something. So I need to do a little research.
Try it, see if you get more traction that way.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even with the problem I see is, it's like, even if you're in the library, how do people know you're there? I mean,
Search.
it's a marketing. You can distribute everywhere and just be, hidden. I mean, or just unseen, a ghost of a creature. This is the issue across all of this, which is why I sort of stay. I'm of the mind I need, and Jaji, maybe you have this more. You've got more name recognition. You've got product out. I mean, Michael too.
Not really. The way things work is like, when my fourth book came out, there was some excitement about my series. There was enough people who knew about it. It was probably right in the middle of Sad Puppies and all these other exciting things that were going on. But because there's like a 2-year, 3-year gap, like my mom died before one of the books came out, and it really, really put it off by like a year by the time I took care of everything. Well, in Amazon, there's no way to like really pick up the excitement again. That there's people out there who would probably like to read the next book, but they don't necessarily ever find out it came out. So I mean, people who are within the sphere that I contact them or interact with them in social media, remain excited to go out to get the next book. But everything is so immediate. In the old days, putting out a book every 2 or 3 years was actually reasonably good, though you tried for once a year. Nowadays, that's considered so, horribly long that, anyway,
Well,
I may have a little advantage, but not nearly as much as I wish I did, based just on people who would like to see the book,
Well, this maybe speaks to the point of doing a smaller piece, so at least something is coming out every year, which was kind of why I sort of did the novella. I mean, because I know, like, but the thing is, then you start talking about quality, quality versus quantity. I mean, I know these, like, the romance writers, they're doing like 3 or 4 books a year, and they're like
to write one book a month. Honest to God, they write a book a month, but I just can't do that.
Well, I mean, it's like, what do you
But I mean,
write at that point?
these two guys who have done that. One of them does it pretty regularly. One of them did it at one point.
How long are the books that he's putting out every month?
They're not super long, but they're regular books at length. I don't know how they do it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see. I mean, and these romance books. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a formula. So
yeah.
you're just
Actually,
filling in the blanks,
this,
and writing. And so it's sort of like I get it, but it's like, I mean, and if you want to do that, do that. But it's sort of, I mean,
yeah. I'm
it,
actually
it's unrealistic to think you're going to put out a decent novel, decent novels a
most of us
year.
just cannot do anything like that. Yeah. What I've decided to do is actually go in the other direction, and it's painful, but I think it's probably the best decision. Which is, I'm trying to get these two romance books done, and they've taken much longer than I thought they were because of just life. I mean, the things with my kids and stuff, have to come first, and health and things like that. But my goal is, once I get them done, to write the entire next 6 books of my character's sophomore year, even if it takes me 5 or 10 years, however long it takes, and then rapid release them every 2 or 3 months for a year, so that I actually, once I have the books ready, can actually build up some momentum. So that's my current plan, because the other plan wasn't working. So
Might be an interesting idea. Yeah, I know. It's like they want everything out right away. No,
yeah,
nobody
yeah,
will wait anymore. And it's like the fact that, it's like you had that thing with J.K. Rowling, the anticipation, but
yeah,
still was, I mean, the movies were coming out. There was just a lot of momentum under all of that.
Different
right,
time.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I mean, and people just expect everything to be done now, and it's
right. So I figure, well, I might as well, rather than having, 1 and then 2 years or 3 years, and then 1 and then, whatever, however long, obviously I'm hoping I'll get the 6 of them done a little more quickly. And there's reasons to think I might, but, I'm hoping that, have all the weight at once, and then give them, a whole bunch all at once. And I hoping that will turn out better than what I have been doing, but I don't know. It's just, one of the problems we have is that we see what works, and then we react to that, and by the time we get to actually doing it, the market has changed. It's changed a lot in the last about 15 years, over and over and over again. So you don't really know what's going to work and what's not. All we can do is do our best about it. It's about.
I guess this is why I don't get too bent out of shape about all of this stuff, because it's like I'm trying to do I'm trying to put together these stories and everything, and they're going to come out the way they are, and it's like either I'll hit it right or I won't. And it's like, ultimately, I mean, you have a certain amount of control, and basically the control is to do the work and to get it to get it out as consistently and as often as you can. But at some point, you can't just bend to all the marketing and all of that stuff, because I mean, you have to do it. I'm not saying it's evil, but at the same time, I mean, you kind of have to pick your battles with all of this, and
Yeah.
let some of them go.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, we wish we could produce a really good book really quickly, but everybody has their own way of doing these things. And, it just, I keep, thinking, I had a period last year where I just was able to work with no interruptions, and it was wonderful. And I was so happy. I was like, this is what I want my life to be like. And then I was ill for a while, and wasn't able to continue. And then now we have a baby coming, grandchild and stuff. So, these things just life keeps coming, but we just keep plugging away at it, and who knows, maybe I will hit another point like I had last winter, where I'm just writing uninterrupted. And when I do that, I actually go pretty quickly. So that's my hope, that in the next 5 years or so, that I'll hit some points like that, and really catch up, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm with it. we have a few more things on the schedule here. And I think that one will pass over relatively quickly, and then the other will riff on a little bit more. The first, selling direct and having a website. Now, my website is really just a nexus for driving traffic to the things that I have available. It is not necessarily a place where you can purchase directly. Will that change in the future? Potentially. I have additional copies of some of my titles, which I had gotten for, I don't know, events or something in the past. I'm very much not compelled by managing that aspect of things. It's just a lot of work to do all the shipping and relationship management and data management. I don't like doing it. I stopped working on other people's websites, building them and maintaining them, because I don't like doing it. So doing it for me isn't going to change my interest in the appeal of the process of doing that, which is why I gravitated towards Amazon years ago and these other distribution platforms, because they handle all that stuff. I just have to work on the actual releases and the marketing and driving the traffic. That part I'm fine with. I like. The technical things, everything moves so fast and is constantly updating at this point, to where managing a website sucks, which is why I have downgraded my personal websites to purely just HTML and CSS. There's no JavaScript on there. I don't think. Maybe there might be a little bit through some of the applets that are pulling some stuff, but in terms of what I'm doing there, minimizing it, because I just want it to be plainly about, like, here is my catalog for the things that interest you. Click to where they're available and purchase them there. That is really the goal. But that's not to say that that's a good goal. That's just what mine is. Any thoughts on selling direct or having a website? I know, Heidi, you've kind of abandoned yours a little bit, but Jaji?
I've kind of abandoned mine too. I mainly use Substack, and I have been thinking I really should publish some of my articles on my website too, the ones that are more related to the website. I know that having dealt with, like, my daughter had an Etsy store at one point. She made origami flowers and sold them, and they were really pretty and people liked them. But I discovered how much I really don't like bringing things to the post office. And same with the Kickstarters, where some of the Kickstarters now we're providing books, and we felt we had to do it. It wasn't really working without that. And I have been, right on top of it, but I don't enjoy it. So my thought is, when I look at the idea of possibly having a web store, it would be just ebooks, or maybe ebooks and audio or something like that, depending on how we could work it out. Because the mailing side of things, to me, is too difficult.
Yeah.
I do know people who've worked it out where if you're not signing a book, you can get like Ingram to send directly to the person. But I also remember them having nightmares with that too. So, to me, so the one thing that I keep getting invited to do more of, and I haven't, is the selling actually in person. We have a little group in our area of science fiction, fantasy, Christian authors, kind of off of Realm Maker.
Do we want to move into the live events side of things, or Heidi, do you have thoughts on website?
I'm in total agreement that at this point in time, a website is just a pain in the ass. I let mine die. I just shut it down because it did nothing for me except, like, make me feel guilty that I did nothing with it. It just sort of sat there. It was a pain in the. It was just so awful. Substack or X has been, I mean, and it was just, it was in total isolation. It's another one of these things where it's like, if it's just you, there's nobody there. But if it's something like Substack, where it's like a storefront, people are there, they're looking around. It's like an antique mall. You have all these little tiny sellers. If you have one little antique seller somewhere, nobody goes. But if it's like an antique mall, people go because they know that there's just a bunch of stuff to look at, right? That's my opinion on it. So I'm in agreement right now having a personal website. Yes, it gives you a certain level of autonomy, but I don't know how useful that is if nobody knows you exist. You know what I mean? So that is my comment. I'm in total agreement with you guys on that. Yeah. In terms of, the thing that we were talking about before is also creating a certain amount of creating, drop shipping of, like, I don't know, bookmarks, I guess, are best for live things. But if you're creating, tchotchkes or what merchandise, I don't know if that fits into distribution, but it helps to sort of throw your images out there, like your book covers and stuff. And maybe that's something that's worth considering.
I have a Zazzle store, but Zazzle ships directly. Now, no, almost no one ever buys anything off of it, but it's useful for two things. One is that occasionally someone buys something. And I should say, Zazzle is a place where you can get, posters, shirts, mugs, clocks, and you can put any image on it you want,
Yeah.
and you can pick the objects they have available, and then you pick which picture you want on it and what options the person can have for it, and you make it available. So, we don't really use it a lot to sell, but it can be really nice for if we have some kind of an event or a launch or something. And like I have a mug, or in fact, recently a friend of mine who's an editor offered to edit my son's first book. And I asked him, how much he charged. And he said, well, he'll do it for a Spy for the Elves shirt, which is one of the shirts we have that comes from my husband's Moth and Cobweb series. So he lives far in another country, so shipping it is actually it's not a small amount. But what he wanted was a shirt related to this book of my husband's that he likes. But that kind of thing, it's really fun to have them. It's just it takes a little time to set up, but once you set it up, it's just there, so it's available. I don't know that it's would say to somebody it's necessarily worth it to set up a lot, but you could even just set up one or two things. It doesn't cost anything to set it up, to have the store. They just take a percentage of whatever it is. So it's kind of a neat little thing. I have pillows with my character on it and things. I have plenty of little things that I got from them, which is fun.
We'll get more into the merchandising thing when we get into the marketing discussion next month. Live events, back to some of that. Jaji, I know you're getting started talking about a group that is regional to you, that you interface with.
Yeah, so there's a group called Realm Makers, which is a national or international Christian science fiction and fantasy group that has a Realm Makers convention. It's not called a convention, it's consortium. I forget what it's called. But anyway, but they also have a Facebook group, and it's been a really nice place for years for various resources and stuff. And a group of us who were on that, but lived within the same, let's say, 150 miles. I don't know. Some of them are close, some are not so close. Have gotten together, and occasionally we have live meetings or do live events. And I finally, this last time, so I did a signing at Barnes & Noble about 2 weeks ago, which was really fun. But I learned two things. The first was that my friend who had bookmarks to hand out had a huge advantage because you have to engage the person. Yes, some people might not want to be engaged, but a lot of people, if I did catch their attention, would then go, oh, wait, are these your books? So they didn't even realize that it was an author signing. They weren't like trying to move away from it or trying to move towards it. It hadn't even caught their attention. So having something to draw their attention was valuable. And being able to say, would you like a free bookmark, was a really easy way to do it, because otherwise they had to, several people came in with dogs, so I complimented their dog. But, not everybody has a dog. You have to think of something to say to get their attention, and sometimes they walk by before you do. So I think the bookmarks for live selling is a great idea. Some little thing that you can hand out to people. They come to a bookstore, they probably want a bookmark anyway, So that was something I learned from this. But the other thing that I learned, so when I travel, I keep a travel bag all ready to go with the toothpaste and toothbrushes for the kids and things like that. And they're big now, but this was when they were little. Because the process of trying to remember all these things is a huge amount of the stress of travel. And I realized that I need to do this for selling, that the number one thing that makes me not want to go sell in person is that I don't know where the right books are or which books I have or what I want to bring. And if I could get slightly smaller, I keep my books in bins, but the people who move their books professionally usually use slightly smaller bins that are lighter. If I could get a bunch of smaller, lighter bins that are maybe, like is about as high as a paperback, and have them ready to go so that I know when I'm going to sell books, I'm going to just take these 4 bins with me. I think I would really enjoy the whole process more, and I would be much more willing to do it because it's that sense of confusion. We have so when we were at tour, they would send you 20 books for every book you publish. So we have these huge boxes with these books in them, but they're all over the place and I don't know which one is which. And I have to buy my own books from Amazon when I want to sell them. And I often don't have the money on hand to do that. So I realized that what I need to do is have a kit, a selling in-person kit that has 10 copies of my first book and a few of the rest of the books. And if I want to do my husband's, I have to pick which books I want of his. And, and that if I organize this so that when an opportunity came, I could go, yes, I'm ready. I think it would actually might be a really fun thing. Because I've just noticed over the last 5 years that we've been doing this, that I usually don't want to go. And I think that part of the reason I don't want to go is that I find the process of how am I going to get the money to get books to sell to be really intimidating. And so I think what I'm going to try to do is set up something like this over a period of time. And then I could jump on the opportunities, which are that friends of mine go to craft shows and sell. They say they sell pretty well there, So there's signings, there's craft shows, there's for our particular group, there's homeschool and conventions. Sometimes are interested in books that might, appeal to teens. So some of our stuff are teens books. And other options like this, Christmas sales in towns, things like that. I mean, we looked into it and found out there are lots of options like this, particularly, either in the summer or in the Christmas season. But you have to figure out which ones you want to go to. Some of them you have to pay for tables. You have to know what the tax laws are in the area where you are. You have to have some way of taking money. So these things can get kind of complicated. Right now, one of our members has her own little square store. So we're all working with her and she takes a small percentage and then gives us the rest of it. But PayPal just offered a way to use your phone to take credit cards, which is in Europe. When I was in England, Scotland, they just took everything with their phone. They would just tap your card to their phone, and that was how they took money, even in big stores sometimes. So, I think if I had a way of taking money more easily myself, so I didn't have to worry about, listing my books ahead of time and how many and how much for whoever it was, unless you're going to Barnes & Noble, then they do need to do that.
So I'm going to jump on what you're saying here because it resembles the same shape as when I was in bands back in the day. And I've said this phrase before here on the program, don't go on tour if you don't have any merch. What you're going to make off the door as a musician is one thing, but what you make off of merch is very much another. And you will oftentimes make more money off of merch than you will at the door. Now, if you are paying to play, to have a booth or something, well, then you're already working in the negative, aren't you? funny thing is, events don't often pay authors to come and hang out. Not saying that they don't, saying they don't often. That said, when we were on tour or even doing, kind of weekend runs where we would do 2 or 3 gigs out of town in a row or whatever, we would have bins, right? So they would be t-shirts and CDs and all the other stuff that we would slang to the children. And that made it really easy to set up and break down and store and move on. That is essentially what you're talking about doing. And yeah, that would make it much easier if you're not having to think about the logistical processes every single time you're doing it.
Oh, I didn't mention science fiction conventions. There are some science fiction conventions like LibertyCon and BaseCon where they'll give you table access. BaseCon, they had the coolest thing where you just put your books out with, like, you could put out your PayPal information, and there was a box where people could put cash, and nobody even watched it because it was such a small group, and it was a pretty high integrity group. I think I made more there than I have anywhere else I've ever gone.
Nice.
But LibertyCon will give you a table for 3 hours if you're a author, and things like that. So, there are certain places where the table is free, and that really helps because then you don't have to worry if you don't sell any. You're not out anything. So there's no pressure.
Yeah, that to me is a foundational issue of participating in stuff like that. I'm just not interested in that. To me, reeks of hobbyist behavior. I just don't see the great value in small events. Now, there's comic book conventions that my friends participate in. They've been established in the space as artists and publishers for 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, to where they have established themselves as, very recognizable talents and publishers, through their work with XYZ or their own original material, over the years. If you are going to have a booth at the San Diego Comic-Con, well, that's one thing. That has a massive, they have an audience that goes there from around the globe to attend that because they know that there are very special announcements made at that event. If you are working at a small regional Comic-Con, say, for example, there was one that I participated in quite some years ago. I had a booth at it, but only because we were working with them to promote and stuff. I wasn't selling anything there. I mean, I was promoting, but it was really just like a staging table for our crew. Now, there are lots of people that were at that event. Did all of them break even? They couldn't possibly have. There were lots of people there. It was a day or two. I don't really remember. I think it was one day. But, if they don't have the foot traffic, then they're charging vendor fees, and sure, but, I don't know why any of the smaller vendors are doing it except to appear as if they are participating at a level that is above what they are actually at. That's fine. Fake it till you make it. I guess that's not really my ethos.
I'm not as familiar with the really big conventions, but I used to go to the middle-sized conventions a lot. And I think a lot of the dealer's room was always one of the big draws. And most of the people I knew.
What's the dealer's room?
The dealer's room is what they would call at a science fiction convention where you go to buy things.
Gotcha.
So most science fiction conventions in the old days, I don't know what they do now because I haven't been to that many in the last about 5 years, had an art show and a dealer's room, and then
Gotcha.
the rest of the convention. So they had two big rooms. And so you'd go in there and you'd buy the books, and you'd buy shirts, and in the old days, that was the only place you could get this stuff,
Yeah.
before the internet. You'd go and buy your cool looking mug or a sword or something. But most of the people I know who sell at dealers' rooms usually make some money. Like that, you'll hear, oh, that was a terrible convention or that was a really good convention. But they made enough money that it was worth it to them to go, even though sometimes they did a lot better than other times.
Sure.
From my point of view, when I'm talking about things like getting a table at LibertyCon or something, I'm talking about if you're an author and you're going anyway to a convention because you like to be there for other reasons and you're talking, then you also get a chance to sell books and there's no downside to it,
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I just think that at the indie level, gosh, it's already hard enough. Don't obligate yourself to additional expenses. That was always the same perspective I had with bands, where it's like, oh, well, you can pay to be on this bill. It's like, I'm not paying to be on a bill to open up for a touring act. Like,
I do
why?
know for like a craft fair or something like that, there's almost always a table charge.
Yeah.
But I have a friend in this area who does a lot of that. That's her main way she sells. She goes to craft fairs and she makes most of her book money that way. And another friend of mine who doesn't really do that, but she does go to some events, also says she just sells more in person than she's managed to sell online.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, if you have that sort of draw. Now, here's the thing too. Some of these Comic Cons that I've seen, and I know this is not necessarily indie publishing, but it's adjacent. They will have featured artists, right? So these people are part of the draw. They will get featured guests, very notable name recognition folks to come out to the event. We are butting up against the hour. I feel like we've covered everything for the most part. I don't feel like there's anything that we haven't, but in the meantime, are there any closing thoughts while we're here?
I think we've covered it. We've covered all the basics.
Well, I would just say on live events, yeah, I mean, I would take the antique mall thing if you're going to do something like that, like what you're doing, Jaji, with your group, where there's a group of you, because people do not want to walk up to one table. It's like they feel if they go to it, they're obligated to buy. But at the same time, it's like, and on the note of whether it's worth it or not, that's it depends. I think it's probably more worth it if somehow the place is going to give you exposure as opposed to just being able to sell. Because I'm guessing most people don't sell a lot at those things.
I think it really depends. I know some
Sure.
authors who do a lot that way. Like that's their main way they sell. I know one author who makes his living as an author, and he lives in the other side of the bay, the Chesapeake Bay. And he just goes to these events and he sells lots of books. So it kind of depends on whether you're good at it, which I'm not that good at it. But
Yeah. Well, what kind of events are they? Are they like, I mean, sci-fi? Is that the kind of thing he's doing?
I don't think so. I think he sells dog books, like stories of dogs. So he's going to like craft shows. Churches have fundraisers where they put out tables. I went to one and I did pretty well at one of those. Like Christmas shows, farmers markets, stuff like that.
Interesting.
If you're willing to do it, I think that's great, but it's really not what I would like to do, and because
Yeah.
I'd rather be home writing, so given a choice, it's not much, but I do think if I set it up ahead of time, at least if I do it, I'll feel a little more comfortable.
Well, it's something to consider if there's some way to kind of work it into a routine.
Yeah.
But
Like
I
if
don't-
you're
and-
going to go to one all the time. I used to go to Doxicon all the time And it was fun because the people there actually like knew my husband. Toxicon is a science fiction convention done by the Orthodox Church. And a lot of the people knew my husband's stuff, so they were eager, to buy. But now they moved to DC, and we didn't have a tax license for DC. The group, me and my friend I was doing it with, and so things like that. Really, you don't really think about it. In Tennessee, you can sell $1,000 without having to pay taxes on it. So that's great. But not every state has that. So there's certain things involved in this that make it so that it's a lot thornier than it looks. And if you put the time in and really want to do it, you can get all these things. But if you don't, it's kind of really difficult to do it just one off once in a while and have everything in place.
All right. Well, this has gone well. It's been a good conversation. We have covered a lot of information. Next week, we are going to be talking about writers beware, the predators and editors, the scams, and being savvy about publishing. As it is for right now, you need to know that the November Grand Sumo tournament is going on. Ono Sato, Japanese native, newest Yokozuna in the league, is dominating. He's undefeated at 9-0 right now. You can catch all of the daily action on NHK World. That is Japanese culture, English language programming. You can get it translated via AI into whatever language you want. I think it's available on Roku. It's available on the web. You can watch it wherever you are. And, he's 9-0. Is he going to secure his first Emperor's Cup? Or wait, maybe this is his second Emperor's Cup. I can't even keep track. He's been on fire. He's amazing. But yeah, in the meantime, we will have this session back again next Tuesday. Heidi will be scheduling it after our preliminary discussion, and we will talk again before too long.